Moms and dads, listen. You're not the problem, but you are part of the solution. And this podcast is here to help you reach with your troubled child. Known as the teen whisperer, Jason Clopton counsels young adults and has a proven track record of reaching kids when parents can't. Listen and take notes. This show will help you figure out what's bugging your baby and build a bridge to a better relationship with your kids.
You are listening to the Teen Whisperer, Jason Clopton. I'm your host, Jason Clopton. Welcome and thank you for listening today. We are going to jump in and talk about a topic that, I was reading an article in the Star Tribune the other day, y'all, and I said, you know what, we got to talk about that, right? We're seeing this significant increase in eating disorders, right? And it's due to the pandemic, right? Especially after COVID. Now, I don't want y'all to think that I'm not going to acknowledge the fact that, yes, certain disorders like anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, didn't exist before the pandemic, right? I've heard some folks say, you guys want to credit everything to the pandemic. This stuff was here before. Well, no, I'm not going to not acknowledge that. What we're seeing, right, is a significant increase. And I want you guys to understand that there's this significant increase. There's a need and a demand that can't be met. And we have to acknowledge, we have to do the work. So I wanted to talk about that today. And what we're seeing is that it's taken 4 to 5 months to get in outpatient treatment facilities. And it's, getting to a point where, again, folks' needs aren't being met. And they're seeing an increase across the board, y'all. This is an increase in these particular categories of disorders in terms of anorexia, right? That's that disorder where you see folks not really eating a lot, right? Body image is important. And this abnormal sense of dieting, right, is kind of prevalent, right? And then you see the bulimia where there's the binge eating and the overeating, right? Sometimes feeling like, this is how I cope with life, right? So those two areas, we're seeing an increase across the board. Now that means adults, that means ain't no color, right? We're talking about adults. There's an increase with teens. There's an increase with babies, y'all. There's an increase with younger children. In this particular category of disorders, there's an increase in Black and white and brown and everywhere. And that's why the data is showing that the pandemic has a significant contributing factor. So what we wanted to talk about, let's jump in, what we've seen, right? And I was reading an article in the Star Tribune, and I was like, wow, some facilities are seeing almost a triple, right? But definitely a double increase, a size increase in their load. So one facility in Minnesota said they were getting 60 calls a day. Y'all, they're getting 130 calls a day. 130 calls a day about this particular category and trying to get help. And they can't meet everybody's needs. So we have to do our work too, parents. And that's why I wanted to bring this to your attention, right? Because we ultimately are responsible for our babies and their health, overall health and well-being, right? And this pandemic is hitting us from so many different angles. We have to make sure that we keep our eyes open to all of those angles and that we're checking in with our babies about everything that we possibly can that deals with their overall health, especially their mental health during a time like this, right? And what they just went through, let's make sure that we're acknowledging that for the babies, especially with this increase, right? And another thing, y'all, two huge components, right, of these particular categories of disorders are anxiety and isolation. Anxiety being that extreme worry about what's going to happen next, expecting the worst outcome. And that's that anxiety that we've seen, right, from the pandemic. What's going to happen next? Am I ever going to be able to go back to school, right? Are my family members going to be okay? Is everybody going to be healthy, safe? There's so much death. Am I going to be healthy and safe? The worry and anxiety that was building up in all of us about what's to happen next, right? And then isolation. I mean, come on, y'all. We were all isolated, right? So this is like that perfect, that we were locked down. So what they did is they mixed up a perfect storm, right? And a perfect pot of stew for these disorders to just brew in, right? And what we're seeing is they're coming to the surface now. And we need to, we need to help. We have to be there. So anxiety and that isolation are two huge, huge components of these particular categories of disorders. And we have to make sure we, acknowledge that. Now, so again, going back to that coping mechanism, right? Sometimes these are ways that we try to deal with the things that are impacting us from other areas in our life, right? The anorexia side is what people think of me, and then having, these situations where you're stuck in the house and, you may have been dealing with, anorexia before this, but maybe you got it under control. And now being stuck in the house is causing relapsing. So what we have seen is that a lot of teenagers, because of the pandemic, have relapsed, right? They may have had their anorexia or their bulimia under control, right? They may have had this in the bag. They may have just been turning the corner and then boom, now I don't have my friends. I don't have my social support group. I don't have, connections to society anymore. Maybe I was going to a support group and maybe that just shut down automatically. Maybe school was a place of safety and peace for me because I didn't have access to food and I like to binge eat, right? I didn't have access to that much food. There were specific times for that. And then when that was taken away abruptly, now I'm at home and the refrigerator's staring me in the face, right? It's those types of abrupt changes that were, due to the pandemic that are impacting our babies. And again, having these things lift themselves up to the surface. And we're starting to see these increases. So awareness is key. Awareness is key in being cognizant of these, how these things from the pandemic have impacted our babies. And, what I want to acknowledge is what you guys can do, right? Parents are always, what can we do about this? I am seeing certain things in my child that are abnormal in terms of eating habits. I am seeing them more concerned about their weight and their image than they were before. I am seeing kind of weight loss or weight gain, and I want to know what to do about it. Well, number one, right? Let's make sure that we see a doctor. Okay, see a doctor. Call your regular medical physician. Get an appointment with a psychiatrist, psychologist, or a psychotherapist, and have them see someone. Okay, get on the waiting list for some of these programs and outpatient treatment programs. And that's a simple Google search, right? But make sure you get on some of these waiting lists because there are waiting lists building up, you guys. But we have to get some professional help. Another thing that you guys can do at home, right, is talk and listen to the babies. Create that space and be creative, right? But create that space where they're open to having some of these conversations with you about what they've seen and how the pandemic has impacted them, right? And also pay attention, right? Pay attention to those little subtle signs, right? Is little Johnny going to get an extra Twinkie or two, or is my daughter Debbie kind of not eating as much food as she used to? Is she kind of more worried about how she looks than she normally is? Those little subtle signs are things that let you know we maybe need to have a conversation, right? Let me dig a little bit deeper. Let me talk to them about that. Another thing that you guys can do personally is educate yourself, right? Educate yourself and make it a fun thing also to try to educate your team. Talk to them about these disorders. Let them know, hey, here's some of the facts. Here's some of the data that they're seeing out there nowadays. Does this impact you? Have you ever had some of these experiences outlined in this particular disorder? Or, hey, if you don't, or if you ever think you might, talk to me about it. I just want to know that I want you to know that I can help you, right? I can connect you to resources or people that can help you, right? Find a support group for your child, for yourself, and make sure that you're having that time to have some shared experiences, right? Bouncing knowledge off of each other of how to manage this, how folks were managing it prior to the pandemic and how they're dealing with it now. These are just options and things that you guys can do, again, to keep the awareness up, but to also understand that this pandemic hit us hard, y'all. And it hit us hard in a variety of ways. And here, we don't want to overlook any of that. So we're going to bring it to the table and we're going to talk about it. And again, parents, remember, you are not the problem, but you are a part of the solution. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to the Teen Whisperer podcast with Jason Clopton, known to his clients as JC the Counselor. Check back every Tuesday for new episodes wherever you listen to your podcasts. Find out more and connect with Jason at ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com.